Welcome to Deakin. My name is Simon Han. I'm the CEO of DeakinCo. A lot of familiar faces and some new faces, which is great. So really pleased to have you here as for our final workshop, actually, or our final event for 2017. And we're finishing very strongly with Anneli here talking around interpersonal skills. We're very deliberate in terms of selecting certainly the quality of our speakers, but the topics in that they align very closely to what we think is really important for workforce and workforce development. You would have hopefully seen throughout the year we've had a very important conversation going around the importance of soft skills. The report we commissioned by Deloitte Access Economics earlier this year, looking specifically at soft skills, their importance in the future of work and skills for jobs of the future. But most importantly, and I think this is the area, and I know Anneli will touch on it today, we need to be having the greater conversation is how do soft skills, how do interpersonal skills link to performance, both in terms of your own effectiveness, personal effectiveness, but your ability to deliver results and the ability for the organisation to collectively deliver better results. And the challenge we've had has been that historical focus around historical skills. What degrees does someone have? You know, even if that degree was achieved, 20 years ago, in an area that you no longer work in, as opposed to how effective is someone with their communication, their emotional judgment, their teamwork, and how might we measure that? And this is where our focus around the micro credential offer, which we're really excited to have brought to market in the last 18 months, and really starting to see some traction with that as people start to understand the value that those micro credentials bring. So it's my job to introduce the star of today, Anneli. Anneli was actually at our soft skills launch, which was great. Describes herself on the website as a professional people whisperer. But I think more impressive is the other skill you note, which is skilled parallel parker, because I really admire skilled parallel parkers. I'd like to think that I'm a skilled parallel parker. And I get very frustrated getting caught behind people who make an absolute botch of them on busy roads. But Anneli has worked with leaders and teams across a long period of time now, improving communication and interpersonal intelligence. Works directly with organisations and as a coach with individuals within those organisations. Is a published author. And has done a number of publications. Certainly a well-recognised award winner, recognised through LearnX, through ANZI's Coach of the Year Awards in 2010, and has earned the designation of Master Coach. So all very, very impressive. But what we like most about Anneli's work, and I've been following it for some time, is her link between, as I talked about, interpersonal skills and performance. How does that link to results? So giving it that tangible outcome beyond just the focus on the importance of interpersonal skills. So if you can please join me in welcoming Anneli for what I'm sure will be a terrific presentation.
Thank you.
For the next 60 minutes, we're going to do a leadership movement class. I'm going to spend 30 seconds doing a dance move, and you're going to follow. And then, one by one, each of you will come up and do your own shimmy dance move. And we will follow. Who's excited? Okay, stop. Stop clapping. Stop clapping. You do not look excited at all. In fact, you look slightly terrified. So let me let you off the hook. Are you warmed up now, though? Are you warmed up? So the good news is this is not a leadership movement dance class. Phew. I'm not fit enough for that 60-minute episode. The good news is that this is not a 60-minute movement dance class at all. So who is genuinely excited by that? Can we just See a show of hands. Are you genuinely excited? This is not a leadership dance class. Who's disappointed? Kate. You were disappointed. Oh, bless you. Really? Well, there's still plenty of time.
I'm sure whatever you have in store will be equally.
Okay, thanks. Okay, good. So, yes, this is... The truth of the matter is my name is Anneli and I'm not a leadership movement expert, but I do specialise in interpersonal intelligence. And this is understanding the impact we have on one another and how the way when you show up, it affects the way somebody else shows up in response to you and how that impacts the way you're able to get the best out of people around us. But I'm really curious, what on earth were you thinking at the beginning when I said, oh, we're going to do a leadership movement class? So was anyone thinking, nah, not me, no dancing? Do we have no dancers?
I quite like dancing, but that's not what I came along for.
Right. Okay, that's not what the brochure said. No, I didn't sign up for that business. Okay, nice. Okay, good. Do we have anyone who was thinking, who is this crazy woman? This thought leader? What did you say, Simon? I don't think I was listening properly.
I'm trying to retract that.
Yeah. Okay, let's have the DeakinCo people. Anyone really worried right now about what's happening? Where's Georgie? She was the one who brought me in. Were you really worried right now?
I was a little bit confused.
Good, good. Would anyone have been prepared to feign a medical emergency just to get out of the whole situation here? Do we have anyone? You are committed, sir. I give you that.
The phone was coming off silent. It was just about...
Did you notice I had someone lock the door? I'm like, can we close that door? Can't have anyone escape because you will never see the ending. But this is what we do, isn't it? Every day, in all different ways, we're making judgments and assessments about the people in front of us and whether or not we think they're worth listening to and what's coming next. And these decisions we make about people moment to moment skew the leadership lens we see them through. And this affects the way we hear them, the way we value them, and the way we lead them. So I am interested today to talk to you about the hidden dynamics that drive leadership success. And most importantly, what that means for this notion of the leadership lens. Because the way we see people does change the way they turn up in front of us. And we can really change the frame and change the game if we understand how this works. See, our job as leaders is to get the best out of the people around us. And yet, as humans, sometimes that can be a little difficult to do, right? It can be a little difficult to see beyond the surface of the behaviours in front of us. Can it not? I'm so glad none of you left. Phew. Was that your dance move?
See, that's me in the office. All the time. That's why everyone thinks I'm weird, probably.
Right. Stay tuned. You should probably stay for the next 60 minutes. Okay, good. But if we don't cultivate the ability to see past those behaviours and our judgments as a result of that, we could be missing out on tremendous value to come. Quantum physics tells us that when we observe something, that which we observe changes. So in everyday speak, this means you get what you expect, particularly when it comes to people. You may have heard of this phenomena called the Pygmalion effect. Has anyone heard of the Pygmalion effect? Yep, in HR circles, okay. So the Pygmalion effect comes from Greek mythology where the gentleman called Pygmalion was a sculptor and he sculpted a statue, bless you, of a beautiful woman who he subsequently fell in love with and brought her to life. The power of his love. And his great expectations that she would come alive, which she did. Now, the opposite effect of that is what we call the Golem effect. You may also have heard of the Golem effect. My precious! Just practicing to see if it's working. And the Golem effect comes from J.R. Tolkien's famous work from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And with the Golem effect, what this is talking about is that people will lower themselves to our expectations. So if we expect they're not going to be any great, they probably won't be any good. So this notion of the leadership lens and our power to change the way people show up in front of us is really critical when it comes to bringing out the best in the people around us. It's not just about them and what they do and what they're capable of doing. It's about our impact on them, what we're able to see, what we're willing to see. That really does impact the way they show up in front of us. This is Chimamanda Adichie. She's a Nigerian novelist, and I love this quote from her. The problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story. There's an organisation in the States called Rockwell Automation. Does anyone know of Rockwell Automation? Oh, you do? Okay, yeah. They have an outlet here. Yep. There's no Rockwell Automation people in the room, is there? No? Okay. So licensed to talk on their behalf. Great. So Rockwell Automation, they are an industrial software and automation organisation. And they've been spending a lot of time and investing a lot of money and resources into diversity in their workspace. Are really building the skill for their managers and leaders to bring out the best in all the people around them. And one of their managers, Lee Chance, who's the North American Vice President of Sales, was faced with the challenge of bringing out the best in his team from within, so rather than hiring from without. So he was trying to find the next leader in his team, and he was really struggling with this because there was no one that he had his eye on that was demonstrating the kind of leadership behaviours that he was expecting to see in the next level of leaders. But he took one of his team members out to lunch thinking, you know, maybe they could have a conversation, he could see what he could find out from this person. So this gentleman's name was, he was a young black man and his name was Robert. So they had a conversation. He thought Robert might have some potential. He was a hard worker. He was a diligent worker. Lee's reservations, though, were that he was quiet in the workplace, kept his head down, never ruffled feathers, wasn't fast with an opinion, didn't really challenge the thinking of those around him. So they're having a conversation at lunch, and Lee starts inquiring about his experience in the workplace. And eventually they get to a conversation where Lee finds out something that really floored him. And what Robert shared with him was, when he was asked, what's your experience like here as a young black man at this organisation? And he said to him, well, I grew up in the Deep South, and I learnt from a very early age from my father and my grandfather never to challenge the authority of the white man, because if you did, you could end up hanging from a tree. This is today. This is today. And that exchange changed both men. And it wasn't just the fact that Robert soon started to trust the system, started to find courage in speaking up, and eventually did get that promotion. It was more so what Lee learned that day. And that was the lesson to not look at what was just in front of him, but to really dig a little deeper and look beneath the surface of the behaviours that he was actually seeing. And as he said, up until this point, I always thought I was fair and promoted the best people. I didn't understand it isn't equal for everyone. The world is changing. The challenges we are faced with are of enormous complexity, and it takes more than the solo leader to solve these challenges. We need to look for leadership at all levels. This is what all the literature is saying to us right now. We need to look for leaders at all levels. But more than that, we need to be able to find the unlikely leader amongst us. But the problem with finding the unlikely leader is that they're so often overlooked. Why? Because of judgment. Yeah? Our ability to see people clearly is really difficult because of this whole human thing. I don't know what it is about just being human, and I don't know if you noticed, but from the minute you walked in the building, from the minute you were deciding who do I sit next to or not, should I just, nope, I'll get myself a cup of tea, not ready to sit next to that person. Oh, you were making decisions about what you thought people were like. Even to the extent when you sat down here, who should I sit next to? Who's this person sitting next to me? So we're constantly making judgments and decisions about the people around us. And that's fine. This is very human. We do it all the time. And yet, as leaders, the consequences of the judgments and the decisions we make about people are far greater than who do we sit next to at a light luncheon and about to do some aerobics. This gentleman knows a little bit about judgment. So this is Steven Spielberg, if you all recognise him, Steven Spielberg. He is the greatest director in history in terms of box office success. He's currently worth $3.6 billion. He's been in the industry for 40 years. I'm sure many of you are familiar with his many famous films. Now, you would think this man at the top of his game was clearly always talented. Yep, clearly always a bright spark in this business, but no. He applied to go to the University of Southern California's famous School of Theatre, Television and Film, and he was rejected. Not once, not twice, you guessed it, 3 times. He never got accepted to that school. He eventually got accepted to another school, but dropped out just to become a director and, I don't know, worth $3.6 billion, yada yada. The rest is history. But where are the Steven Spielbergs in our organisation? Where are these people that we're overlooking for whatever reason, currently within our teams, currently within our organisations? We know that the future of work is decidedly human. Don't be fooled by automation. I know automation is coming. I know the robots are coming, people. I know they're coming. But not in the way that we think, right? We still need to do decidedly human thinking, cognitive, very hard work where we need to use our brains, yes, and the brains of the people around us. And so we know that the future is going to be characterised by people, and not only people, lots of people, different people from all over the globe, all over countries and cultures. So this means we're facing a rise in globalisation. We're connected now more than ever across different mediums and different time zones. With the rise of the gig economy, we've got people who are working part-time, people who are contracting, so we've got lots of people coming into our workspace and leaving again. This means we have to know people, appreciate people, understand people, and work with lots of different people a lot. And really, that's why we see such a big push in diversity. Yep. And so you know this, I don't need to tell a room full of HR business leaders about the importance of diversity, but let me go ahead anyway. So we know that organisations who are heavily invested in diversity are appreciating 30% higher returns per employee. We know teams are smarter, they're more engaged, they're more innovative. Now, the true benefit from my perspective around diversity is the fact that people challenge our thinking. They challenge our assumptions. And they never, ever, ever let us go out on our first date in this kind of outfit. Now, this may or may not be me at age 18 on my first date. I couldn't possibly say. But I mean, who would let someone walk out of the house in a grey zip-up hoodie? Like, when is that ever appropriate? Maybe at the time, definitely not so much now. This is the power of harnessing diversity. That was before the selfie. Had to get someone else to do it with real arms and not a stick. Yeah, it was all weird back then, you had to ask.
Don't worry, I'll see it.
So the leadership we need going forward has to really understand and value this diversity and people. And perspectives and contributions. No longer will we stand for command and control leadership. I know it's still out there, but we will not stand for it anymore. The workforce of the future are demanding much, much more from our leaders, even more than emotional intelligence, even more than leaders who are purpose-driven and self-aware. We want someone who is a socially intelligent leader. This is someone who can read nonverbal cues. This is someone who can read between the lines, who can work out the dynamics about what's going on between people, in groups, across departments. We need a broader lens than the one we're seeing the world through at the moment. Deloitte recently put out a paper where they talked about the importance of soft skills. Now, this is the first time before their next iteration with Deloitte Access and DeakinCo. Thank you for the soft skills work there. But before that, they were looking to prove the importance and the bottom line impact of the intangible, and this is the soft skill. Yeah, so you may have seen this research. So market analysts are willing to add 15.7% onto the share price of an organisation where they deem there to be great leadership. They're also willing to discount that share price by 19.8% for poor leadership. Leadership skills matter. Social intelligent leadership matters even more. We need to be able to look for talent where we least expect it. Do we have any gamers in the room? Yeah, computer gamers, not mind gamers. Computer gamers. That's a totally different talk. Computer gamers. Anyone play computer games? Sort of. Okay. Well, look. Thank you for half putting your hand up. I appreciate that.
Kids, I have to play computer games. I've got no choice.
Sure. Okay, so part-time gamer, right?
Yes.
Maybe not this kind of gamer. So, to be fair, when I think about computer gamers, a certain image certainly comes to mind, right? A certain stereotype comes to mind. I will share the inner workings of my mind. I think about this, possibly this, maybe even this. And it's really easy, isn't it? It's really easy to write off gamers or people who are, you know, what are you doing with your life? Get a real job, all that kind of stuff. But what we know about gamers is that they have a set of unique skills. They're excellent at staying with a problem longer than most. They can compete and cooperate at the same time. They're great at critical thinking. So a bunch of scientists were facing a real-world problem in 2011. Up until that point, they had been unable to solve a particular challenge, and this was to resolve the structure of an enzyme that caused an AIDS-like mutation in monkeys. I know, right? Riveting Saturday night. I know, just stay with me, stay with me. So this is what the scientists had been doing for 13 years, and they had been unable to solve this challenge. And so they thought they needed to harness the talent where they least expected it. So they handed it over to the gaming community by constructing a game called Fold It. How long do you think it took for the gaming community to solve this puzzle, which they did? Any guesses?
24 hours.
24 hours? A little bit longer. A little bit longer. They would be pleased to hear you say that, though. I'm sure I'll pass on your comments.
Do everything in 24 hours.
Yeah, that's right. Because they're still up at night like this. Any guesses? Month, a little bit less. 3 weeks. 3 weeks it took the collective genius of these people to solve that problem. We need to look for talent where we least expect it. But we face a uniquely human challenge when it comes to finding the value in unlikely leaders. And I think Beaker puts it best. Don't you think? I'm not going to do the Beaker voice because I actually can't do the Beaker voice. Trying to understand the behaviours of some people is like trying to smell the colour 9. We just don't get people sometimes. Is it just me, or sometimes people are just weird? We misinterpret intentions. We misjudge actions. Yeah? We see people through a skewed lens. So I want to talk about the 5 ways that we skew this leadership lens and distort the people in front of us and potentially write off their unlikely leadership. So the first way, the brain thinks that difference is danger. So if I meet someone who is a little different to me for whatever reason, I'm likely to shut down to them. So we are wired to be social creatures. We grew from tribes from an evolutionary perspective, which means I'm constantly categorizing the people I meet as like me, not like me, friend, foe, safety, danger. So if I decide that for some reason, unconsciously, you are not like me in some way, I will shut down to you. In fact, I will downgrade your competence. That's right, I think you're not as good as you think you are, or as good as you might actually be. So I downgrade your competence, and we miss the value in front of us. In fact, if we think people are very different to us, the more different we think people are to us, the more we're likely to do this. So I'm curious, have you ever worked with someone in your career to date who pushes your buttons? I mean, is it just me? You've just don't look at them now, that would be weird. Nobody turn to the side. Don't pat them on the shoulder. I hope you're not really colleagues, eh? You are. Awkward. Nice. Okay, lovely. Good. So we've worked with people in our careers who push our buttons, who grind our gears, yeah? And that's what's happening when we are deciding that they are more different to us. And what's happening is we're in danger of shutting down to their actual value. So have a chat to the person next to you. Think of this person, not the one who you're talking to. Think of the person who's pushed your buttons in the past and just have a chat about what was it about those behaviours that really got you going. Just have a quick chat about that now. Okay, let's bring it back to the front. Let's bring it back to the front. So I suspect I might be about to open a can of worms, but there was just so much energy in the room. I have to ask, what were you talking about? Who'd be willing to give us an example? Just a couple.
For me, it's probably indecision. There's something needs to be decided and you've got a little bit of wavering in terms of a direction.
Just make a decision. Nice. Okay, good. Thank you very much. Who else?
The three of us actually had very similar insights. We identified ourselves as being high-level, big-picture sort of people, and the person on the other end was a stickler for detail and, just bringing us down.
I really don't understand what you're talking about. I think I need a little bit more detail because I can't quite follow what you're saying. I really don't understand. Maybe could you send me an essay on it? No, I'm not going to do that to you. That's really mean. Okay. What we know about behaviour is that all behaviour is motivated. So it's really tempting to think that people just turn up to the workplace just to annoy you. Just to annoy you. And I know we think that is sometimes true. And when I say no, that's definitely not true, there's always someone who says, no, you don't know this person. So I know that person you're thinking about, and I'm telling you, it's still true. So we turn up to work and we don't intend to annoy the people next to us or push their buttons, yeah? So the micromanager doesn't turn up just to suffocate the life out of you. They're truly going for quality. They just don't know how else to do it. So we know that all behaviour is motivated and we need to find a way to separate this outward behaviour from people's inside driving intentions. I had a client recently, I work with leaders and I help them with interpersonal influence, yeah, how to get the best out of people, how to get engagement and impact. And this gentleman, Jeff, came to me once and he was saying that he was having difficulty with a new recruit. So he'd hired this man, he showed lots of potential, and he sat in my office, I remember it very clearly, he said, I'm avoiding him. He's only been here a few weeks and I'm literally avoiding him. So, oh, okay, that's interesting, tell me more. I can't have a conversation with the man. I find myself literally just sort of scooting out the way. So, okay, so tell me more. He just boasts. He goes on and on about how great he is, he's always tooting his own horn, and I can't handle when people just go on about how great they are, and it's driving me crazy to the point where I just don't want to engage in conversation and hear about how fabulous he is anymore. I said, okay, that's kind of awkward. As his leader, sure, let's talk about it. So over the course of our conversation, we began to explore what might have been driving that behaviour, because this guy's not turning up just to corner the manager and tell him how fabulous he is for no particular reason. So through the course of our conversation and our explorations, my client Jeff started to wonder if perhaps the genesis of that motivation was more around an overcompensation for a lack of confidence. Yeah, and this is just a hypothesis to test. But sometimes we do things and we're overcompensating, so possibly he was feeling a little insecure as a new member of the team, didn't quite know his place yet, maybe a little intimidated by people around him, so he overcompensated and started boasting. So the next step, of course, was for Jeff to consider changing his behaviour in some way, which started with having some conversations. That's a first good step. And he thought, I can do that, but it was the next step that really, really challenged him. I remember him saying, I feel a little bit of vomit in my mouth, Anneli. There's a little bit of vomit in my mouth. You're asking me to praise this guy? You want me to praise this guy, the guy I'm running away with because he's bragging so heavily? And I said, yeah, I know, it feels hard, I know. Just give it a go for a couple of weeks and see what happens. And of course, as you can imagine, after a couple of weeks of being validated, having his spot reinforced, his bragging behaviour started to calm down, thankfully. So I'm curious about the person you've just been talking about and what you think might actually be happening with them. What do you think is going on for them beneath the surface that's driving that kind of behaviour? Just take another few moments and see if you can decode some of that behaviour. Off you go. Okay, so let's bring the conversation back to the centre of the room. So I'm wondering if you might consider how a change in your behaviour, you know where I'm going with this, don't you? I'm wondering if you might consider how a change in your behaviour could impact their behaviour in some way. No need to respond, just like you to take that away and have a think about it. You know, it's easy to think that if you do this work a lot, that you always get it right, but I get caught out with this sort of stuff quite often. And I remember about 15 years ago, I worked with this guy and I instantly did not like him. I thought he was arrogant and aloof, and I know that he thought I was emotional and inexperienced. That's fine, this was a long time ago, and I'm sure all of those things were true at some point in time. And thankfully we didn't have to work together for very long, we got separated quite quickly, but a couple of years ago our paths crossed again and I found myself working with this guy. So you can imagine my joy, not when I heard that, you know, we would be working together. But I thought, time's passed, I've changed, I certainly hope he's changed, so maybe I could just widen my lens a little and, you know, look for something different and I'll see what I find. So as it turns out, he was quite friendly, actually. Times had changed. He was quite warm, he was even funny, which was very unusual. I was very shocked by that. But I'm really glad that I did look at him differently. Well... So we're getting married next year. Yeah. So there's something to be said for pushing your brain past the danger of difference. You know, you just never know where it could lead you. You never know. So the second way we distort our leadership lens is because we think we're rational. We think we're rational. We think we're logical, objective, rational thinkers. But I hate to tell you, unfortunately, we are simply humans, driven by impressions and emotions and perceptions and all those kinds of things. So let's put this to the test. So you have now all become maths teachers. That is what you are. Because we're at DeakinCo, are there any maths teachers? No. Excellent. Let's all pretend we're maths teachers. So your job is to determine which child is better at maths. And I'm going to show you the children's test results, and I just want you to tell me which one is better at maths. Okay, pretty simple. Sarah's results. Sally's results. Okay, which do you think is better at maths? I know it's very quick. Which do you think? First one or the second? Hands up for the first one. Hands up for the second one. Hands up, it was too quick, you couldn't see, and not prepared to make a judgment. Okay, good. If I leave it on the screen too much longer, you'll count them, and that won't work. Okay, so yeah, you should have split up the task. Oh, why didn't I tell you what we were doing? So they were the same. They were the same. They were the same. But what happens is, this is actually an experiment that is replicated with great reliability. So what they're testing for here is an effect called the primacy effect. And what happens is we weight more heavily information that we see at the front. So we see Sarah and we go, yes, 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 yes. And our brain's already decided, oh, Sarah's good at maths. Yeah, and then we go, oh, bad luck, bad luck, better luck next time. Oh, there she is again. Yep, Sarah's good at maths. Similarly here, we move over to Sally and we go, oh, no, 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 oh, no. Sally's not very good at maths. That's a shame. Oh, well. Oh, she got a few, right? Oh, well, we'll keep working on Sally. Because our brain has already made the decision, and it doesn't matter if you have the objective information. It's too late. Your brain has already made that decision. And you think you're rational people. I'm so sorry to disappoint you. What about this? So we know that if you are sitting with someone and holding a warm cup of coffee, that you will interpret the person in front of you as being warmer than if you were holding a cold cup of coffee. Right? So don't meet with people in the summer is what that's saying. It's saying have business meetings in winter is what that's saying. What about this? So we know that the brain interprets a neutral expression as a negative expression. There's no logic about this. This is purely There's no such thing as rationality when it comes to human beings. What about this guy? I mean, He could be concentrating. He could be constipated. We don't know. We simply don't know. We are just driven by assumptions and impressions. The third way we distort our leadership lens is through this filter of likability. This filter of likability. When we like someone, we see them as more capable. When we don't like someone, we actually downgrade their competence. In 0.07 seconds, we've made the determination already as to whether or not we like you. Isn't that scary? You don't even get a chance to realise your brain has already made that decision for you. And from that point on, that person has to work really hard or not at all to move your decision in either way. So we know that we're making instant decisions about people around us. And if we decide that we like you, yay you, that's a good place to be, our lens widens and we see more of you. We're willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. We're willing to see beyond the surface and look to your potential. If we've decided we don't like you unconsciously, because this is not always happening up here for whatever reason, we just have that feeling about someone, our lens narrows on you and we are more likely to misinterpret your intentions in a negative way. We're more critical of you and we're less likely to be as forgiving. Yeah, and you know this to be true. So there's a real danger with this likability because we get caught up in how much we like someone. In fact, in Malcolm Gladwell's book Blink, you may have read in his fabulous book Blink, he talks about a study around doctors and likability in doctors. And so doctors who are seen as not likable, so cold, they are twice as likely to be sued. Twice as likely to be sued, not because of how good they are, but because of how people feel about them. In fact, people will not sue their family physician if they love them, even if they're the ones that were wrong. They insist on suing the cold, mean doctor, even if they were the ones that were right. So the danger with likability is that it's almost like we refuse to believe in someone's competence if we don't like them. That's it, hands down. We just don't want to believe in it. Some of you may recognise this man. This is Alan Turing. Alan Turing. So Alan played a significant role in breaking the German Enigma code in World War II, depicted by, what was his name? Benedict Cumberbatch. That's it. Who wants to say Cumberbund? Yeah? It's not just me. So Benedict in the biopic The Imitation Game, really excellent film. So we know that Alan, he was seen as the father of modern computing, basically a genius, also had a reputation of being really hard to get along with, not very likeable, and in fact in the early part of his working career in this particular assignment, as it were, found it really hard to get people on board because his genius wasn't obvious yet on the things that he was working on. So people were just writing him off and he was getting a lot of resistance and pushback. And it made it difficult for other people to work with him and for them to get better outcomes. It's said that his work shortened the war by 2 to 4 years. And I think it could have been even shorter if people had liked him and gotten on board much more quickly. So let's watch a clip just to feel what it would have been like to work with Alan Turing, according to the biopic The Imitation Game.
The boys, we're going to get some lunch. Alan?
Yes?
I said we're going to get some lunch. Alan?
Yes?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I said we're off to get some lunch. This is starting to get a little bit repetitive.
What is?
I had asked if you wanted to come to lunch with us.
No, you didn't. You said you were going to get some lunch.
Have I offended you in some way?
Why would you think that?
Would you like to come to lunch with us?
What time's lunchtime?
Christ, Alan, it's a bleeding sandwich.
What is?
Lunch.
Oh, I don't like sandwiches.
Never mind.
You know, to pull off this irascible genius routine, one actually has to be a genius, Alan. And yet we're the ones making progress here, aren't we?
You are?
Yes, we are. We have decrypted a number of German messages by analyzing the frequency of letter distribution.
Oh, even a broken clock is right twice a day. That's not progress, that's just blind luck. I'm designing a machine that will allow us to break every message, every day, instantly.
Who's hungry? Let's go.
I'm hungry.
What?
Peter asked who was hungry. Can I have some soup, please?
So let's make this a little bit real. Let's talk about impressions of likability, and let's meet two characters. So we have Sam and we have Alex. So I'm going to give you some information about Sam and then about Alex, and I just want to hear what your impressions are of these two women as you learn about them. So Sam has won 4 scholarships for academic excellence at high school, very bright, yes. Top 3 or 4 subjects in the first year of uni, sponsored a child, run a half marathon. So what are your impressions of Sam? Just throw out some descriptive words, really loud, outside voice.
High achiever.
High achiever.
Overachiever.
Overachiever, nice.
Focused.
Focused. Goody two-shoes? Yes?
She went to a good school.
Good school, okay.
She likes recognition.
Likes recognition, okay, good. So you've got some impressions and ideas about her. All right, let's meet Alex. Failed the same subject at uni twice, lost 8 demerit points all for speeding, was escorted out of her local gym by police, doesn't spend enough time with friends, hates getting up in the morning. What are some impressions of Alex? Terrible, just shaking your head, terrible.
She likes to party.
She likes to party, okay. Yep.
She's real.
She's real, okay, normal.
She lives with me.
She lives with you, okay, good. She's got great potential. Top of the class, top of the class. Free book for you. Ditzy, okay, nice. So there's definitely impressions that come up, right? Whatever they are, they're definitely impressions. And I imagine they're quite different for the two women. So imagine you were hiring these women, or you were deciding between these two women, basically the same CV, same schooling, same background, and yet you have been on Facebook, because I know that's what happens nowadays. You get on Facebook, you get on LinkedIn and Twitter, and you look at what happens in real life, and you get information about them, and you learn this sort of stuff. Now, you might not think it makes a difference, but it will make a difference. Now, the interesting thing about these two ladies is that they are, in fact, the one lady. This is a real person. And the reason I know that is because this person is me. All of these things are true about me. I know what you're thinking. The gym story's coming, don't worry. And just to defend myself, the speeding is 65 in a 60 zone. I can't do 60, I just can't do it. It's 65. It's never over 100, just so you know. But this is what happens. So if you meet me through the lens of Alex, it's going to be much harder for me to demonstrate my value, for you to be able to really see the potential within. But if you meet me through the lens of Sam, well, you'll have higher expectations, I'll probably show up in a different way, and it will make all the difference. So likability clouds what we're capable of seeing with the people in front of us. Okay, the fourth way we distort our leadership lens is through this notion of the social code. So we know there is a certain way to do things in life. Yep, people expect certain behaviours of us and we of them. So if I asked you for something, I would say, can I have that, please? And if you gave it to me, I would say,
thank you.
Thank you, exactly. When you're speaking with someone, it's appropriate to speak at a certain distance. Thank you, sorry about that. Yes, the close talker. Who's seen that Seinfeld episode? Yes, there is a certain distance to stand between people. Right, so we know intuitively, right, there's a social code of expectations and norms. Particularly around food. So we know this is definitely not how you slice a pie. And please, never eat a Kit Kat like this. People, never do it. And in my house, this is not how you slice a pizza. Now, while I have a captive audience. Can I just put a debate that's been going on in my house for ages to bed? So there is only one right way to butter Vegemite on toast. There's only one right way, and I'm going to show you two options. And I would like you to call out left or right which one you know is the right way, okay? And then I'll let you know whether you can come to my house or not. Okay, ready? Left or right? Have a moment to study it. Correct. Yay, look at all my new friends. That's fantastic.
Don't do it. We've decided.
Don't do it?
We don't like Vegemite.
Oh, just not Vegemite at all. Okay. See, the issue with the social code is that it's unwritten. And because it's unwritten, we are in constant danger of breaking it without realising it and making people judge us in certain ways without realising it. So a client was once telling me about a friend of his who was going for a job, and this guy was a shoo-in for the role. He knew most of the people in the department. He was just waiting on the technical announcement, if you like. But the CEO decided he wanted to meet this new guy and take him out for lunch just to sort of do a bit of a character check. So they went out for lunch, they were having a lovely meal, and halfway through the meal, the CEO stops and says, "Oh, this meal is delicious, you really should try this." And the candidate was sort of thinking, "Oh, that's really weird, that's very unusual, and I'm really uncomfortable with the idea of eating off this man's plate, but, you know, for the sake of a job, why not this one time?" So he reaches over and, "It's really lovely, yeah." Anyway, a couple of days go by and he finds out that he didn't get the job. And you know why? Because when the CEO said, "This is really lovely, you should try this," what he meant was, "This is really lovely, you should try this sometime, some other time, on your own time, preferably off your own plate." And he went back to the office and talked about how this man had no manners and he was so rude and we don't want anyone of that character in our organisation, and he didn't get the job because he broke the social code. And you shake your head, and we do it all the time. So I was in a business meeting with someone who I thought I might do a little bit of work with. We'd met very briefly and we decided to have a coffee meeting, you know, remember, warm cup of coffee, so that we were both likeable. Warm cup of coffee, so we could determine if it was appropriate to work together. So he told me a little bit about his business, and then it was my turn to tell him about my business. So I got a couple of sentences in, and halfway through one of my sentences, he did this: "Gilmo, Gilmo." And I sort of stopped. I didn't know what Gilmo... Does anyone know what Gilmo is? No? Good. So me either. We're on the same page. I had no idea what that was, and I'm thinking, is this, like, have I missed YMC? Like, did something... Have I missed the whole craze? I don't know what this is. Is he hailing an Uber? Like, what is this? So I said, "I'm sorry, I don't understand. What's Gilmo?" And he says, "Got it. Let's move on." Yes. I'm so glad it's not just me. So, yeah. And he said, "Oh, sorry, that's just our shorthand in the office. You know, just got it, let's move on." And I said, "Okay, so I'm a bit of a longhand kind of girl when it comes to communication, and I like my words out loud, you know, just straight to my face." So needless to say, that really broke my social code, and we didn't end up doing business together. Even though he was particularly good at what he did, I just couldn't come at the idea of working in that way. And in fact, research tells us that we would much rather work with lovable fools than competent jerks. Very interesting. So the final way that we distort our leadership lens is by falling into this snap trap. This is where we make snap judgments about people. Snap decisions, and we don't question those decisions. It's okay to make snap judgments as long as you're prepared to continue forward as if they're not true. But with the snap trap, we make the judgment and we act as if that is true, and that's really where we get into trouble. Now, I started this session today with some fake gym stuff, but now we're going to go to a real gym. Don't worry, you still don't have to do any gym, I promise you. So I was at my local gym a little while ago and I was doing a pump class. I don't know, has anyone heard of a pump class? You know what it is, right? So it's a group exercise class with weights. And so we're in the middle of the class and we're all pumping with our pumps, and the instructor on the stage looks down to me and he says, you need to get a step because triceps are coming up, right? So tricep dips, and you need a step on the ground to do tricep dips. And I say, no, it's okay, it's fine. I don't need the step because I'm too lazy to get the step, right? I can't be bothered, it's too busy, it's always a crowd. I'm like, I don't really need the step, I'll just go on the ground. So I've never, in 5 years, ever once, gotten the step out. So I said, no, I'm fine, carry on. And he says, no, you need to go get the step. And I say, no, it's fine, just ignore me, just carry on. And he says, if you don't get the step, I'm going to turn the music off until you get it. This is in the middle of a gym class. So I say, it's really, I just won't do the exercise. Like I'll just stand out and you guys do the stuff and I'll wait for it to pass. And then, you know, because I really do want to get this step. And so he marches over to the music with his little stabby finger and, it's like, and turns the music off. And then comes back and looks and says, if you don't get the step, I'm calling the police. And so I'm just a little dumbfounded at this stage, and I'm thinking, okay, this has got a little out of control. This is not what I was expecting. So I'm now standing there, the music stopped, everyone's getting angry, people are yelling at me in this fitness class, get the step, just get the step, like what's your problem? I'll get the step for you, who cares? Boo, boo. So half the people are booing, half the people are yelling at me. Like in the history of the world, I'm sure this has never ever happened. So I'm standing in the middle of this chaotic scenario and I have a decision point. Right? I'm at a decision point. Do I use all my skills in negotiation and influence and de-escalating the situation, all those great things? No. Or do I dig my heels in and go, today is not the day, my friend? And so that's what happened. So I dug my heels in and I said, call the police, I don't care. I don't see what the problem is. I think we should all just lunge. So I'm there in the class, literally lunging on my own. Everyone is still standing, booing and yelling. And I'm saying, I don't know what the problem is. Let's just lunge. Because I knew they were coming up next. So I'm lunging. Anyway, so finally he puts the music back on and we start doing the activity. And the cops come literally in 5 minutes. Like, are they sitting downstairs going, code red, lady in lycra, code red, lady in lycra? They come up, they escort me out of the class. To a round of applause. That's right. Standing ovation, round of applause. I get escorted out and I get a warning. I would love to say that I did some time for my fitness crime, but I didn't go to the... I even went like this and he said, don't be silly. I went, oh, okay. I'll just walk out like a regular person from the gym with the police. So I got a warning and I was asked not to aggravate the instructor anymore, which I agreed to do. And then I came back the next day like nothing had happened. But what happened? Like, what was that about? So I found out later that there had been a woman attending those classes who was using the equipment in a dangerous way. So she was using the free weight plates and basically just kind of doing this business at the back of the class, and they were worried that she was going to hurt someone. And they'd had a few conversations and nothing had happened. So they decided in a staff meeting that they were going to go really hard on this woman in particular, but on everyone and how they used the equipment or not. And so this instructor thought I was her. I fit the description, apparently, and he made a snap judgment about who I was in that moment, and that's who I became in that moment. And so the rest is history. But I can tell you one thing is for sure, that if he had have seen me differently, he would have seen a different me. And if he would have asked a few questions to verify his snap judgment, the whole thing might have turned out totally differently. So if you want more information on how you are making snap judgments about people and what might be going on beneath the surface when it comes to typical behaviours like micromanagement and bullet-a-gate and the doer and the people pleaser and all those kinds of things, all of that is covered in my latest book, which I have a copy for you all if you want one. So this book's called Developing Direct Reports, Taking the Guesswork Out of Leading Leaders, and it covers the 12 globally recognised leadership derailers and what to do about them. So I have lots of copies up there if you'd like one. There's forms on your table. Just pop in your details and we'll do an exchange, and away you can go, sorting out the snap trap issues. But what else? How do we widen this leadership lens to see beyond the surface and find the unlikely leaders amongst us? The first strategy you can do is to be curious. This is about asking questions. And not just any question. Ask a question to which you don't already know the answer. Let's dig a little deeper. What drives you? What challenges you? What inspires you? What makes this person tick? Number 2, go first. Don't wait for people to be on their best day, putting their best foot forward, showing up with their potential on their sleeve. If you don't see that, go find it. Reach out to people. Have a conversation with someone that you don't know. Have a conversation with someone that you don't understand or maybe don't even like, and find out what's there. And finally, change the frame. We need to start looking for the positive intention, people's best intentions, not the worst intentions, and assuming that people aren't out to do wrong by us, that they're simply living their lives, making the best choices that they can with what they've got. And we need to assume best intentions from them. I personally think we need to be kinder to people, actually. I think we just need to relax a little, particularly in the world today with all the things that are going on and all the things we see on TV. Just everybody relax. Yeah. Can we just be kind? Can we just be human? Is it all right just to cut some people some slack? Yeah. In 1986, The Guardian newspaper from the UK put together a brilliant ad that speaks to this.
An event seen from one point of view gives one impression. Seen from another point of view, it gives quite a different impression. But it's only when you get the whole picture you can fully understand what's going on.
Bringing out the best in the people around us starts with us. But it's only when we realise the power of our leadership lens to change the frame that we can really change the game. And as Dr. Wayne Dyer once beautifully said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Anneli. Any questions?
How do you coach others that are interviewing or recruiting? Because there's a lot of judgment there when people are recruiting for a role.
Yep. Wherever possible, putting in the structural support to remove bias. Yeah. That's one of the best ways. And training people on their tendencies. So the more self-aware you are about your own preferences and the things that drive you crazy, the easier it is for you to recognise those other tendencies in other people. So in terms of recruitment for me, what I'm always looking for is I want to understand what's needed in the role, and therefore how am I likely to respond to that? Do I need someone detailed? Do I need someone who's able to consider lots of perspectives but won't make a decision? And do I know that's going to drive me nuts? Well, I will have a very specific response to that kind of trait. So if I'm clear about that, then I can be clear about getting myself out of the way as much as possible.
Thank you, Anneli. It's always great when we get a combination of insightfulness and entertainment, and you tick both boxes. So we can have a big round of applause. Thank you.